Hey guys, I'm Faris Gaskin, and in this video I'll be teaching you how to add buttons in your Android project. We will start by creating a new Android Studio project. We'll just call it My Application, and once the project is done, we'll move this part away for a while. We're not using it yet. And as you might have noticed, after a couple of projects, you'll see that this couple of lines will always be there whenever you create a new project. So this tells us that these lines of codes are compulsory for Android projects. So you have the main class, main activity, same name with this file name. And then we are calling the app-compat activity library. So the app-compat activity allows your app to be used or installed in Android devices that runs on lower Android versions all the way to the latest versions. And then we have the main constructor, the onCreate, and then we have the save instance state bundle, and finally we have the onCreate object, and finally the set content view, which defines the first screen that you will see on your device whenever you open your app. Now let's go to activitymain.xml. The first thing that we're going to do is delete the existing text view element. And afterwards, we're going to add a new linear layout vertical inside the already existing constraint layout. So linear layout allows all your items to be stacked to the top and left side of the screen. So this allows for a much easier learning curve. Right, and so we're going to click all the border buttons. So we're going to set the margin for our linear layout all to 0, left, right, top, and bottom. And we're going to give it an ID. We'll just call it layout for now. Right, so let's go back to main-activity.kotlin. So over here, we're going to connect a new variable. We'll call it val layout as well. So it's self-explanatory, and we're going to find view element by its ID. So we're going to use find view by ID. So r dot id dot layout. So we're going to take this away as linear layout. Okay. And next, we're going to add a new button programmatically. So usually we're going to add our new buttons in the XML, but for now we're going to add using our Kotlin codes. So we'll add a comment here, create dynamic buttons. So we'll create a new variable called button dynamic of the type button, and we'll add a pointer this, and then we're going to add some settings for the button. setting the width and height. So we're going to call the object button dynamic, and we're going to use layout parameters to set the width and height of our new dynamic button. Equals linear layout dot layout parameters so again we're going to call linear layout dot layout parameters dot wrap content view group dot layout parameters dot wrap content. So this line is too long. I'm going to take this down so it's easier to see. And then we're going to set the text for our button. So we're going to type something such as dynamic buttons. Buttons or buttons? Well, it's up to you. And finally, we're going to add the button to the linear layout. So layout dot add view button dynamic. So now that our project is done, let's connect our device to our computer. And we'll click the run button to test. Right, so I'm running on my Android device. And let's wait for a couple of minutes. While doing so, I'm going to make a cup of coffee for myself. Okay, so as you can see, we have our dynamically added button here on our app. It's doing basically nothing because we haven't told it to do anything yet. But you can actually see from this example that you can add XML elements using Kotlin code. So let's terminate our project. Okay, so we have added a button using Kotlin codes. So now we're going to add an actual XML button into our project. So we're going back to activity main.xml, and from the palette go to buttons, and we're going to grab a button element and we're going to drag this into the component tree onto the linear layout vertical. So I guess the margins for the buttons are already set. Right, we're going to call it button for now. And we're going to change the text for the button to quick me. Right. And let's go back to main activity.kt. We'll just leave it here for a while. And we're going to add a new variable. Let's call it button click, which will be used to bind this object to the same XML button object. So find view by ID r dot ID dot button as button. Okay, so you'll notice that the variable is still gray for now because we are not using it just yet. And we're going to set a listener to our new button. So button click dot set on click listener, and we're going to display a toast each time a user clicks that button. So toast dot make text points to this particular file or main activity, which is basically this file. And we're going to display you clicked me, and we'll define how long the toast will appear. Length short, and finally we'll call the show function. Alright, that's it. So we're going to connect our device and let's run. Right, so we have two buttons over here, the first one and the second one, and we didn't tell the first button to do anything, but if you click on the second button, click me, you'll see the toast coming up down here. So it says you clicked me. Right, so let's terminate this project. So you might have wondered why every text that is displayed on the button is in capital letters. So you can actually tell the buttons to display with just the first letter as capital and the rest is lower cap. So all you have to do is add a single line of code. So we're going to do this for the second button. Button click dot is all caps equals false. That's it. So let's see it in action. Okay, so now you can see that the text for the button has changed from all caps to just capital letter for the first one and the rest is low cap. By default, our buttons look dull. It's just a gray square thing on the screen. So we'll spice things up by changing the background color and shape of our buttons. In doing so, we're going to add new XML files inside the drawable folder. So the drawable folder is actually prepared for you to put images in, but you can sometimes replace the images with XML. So let's right click on the drawables folder, choose new file. Now don't go to XML because it's going straight to the values or the layout folder. So we want our files to be put inside the drawables folder. So there's two folders over here, drawable and drawable v24. So we're going to add it to the drawables folder so that regardless of what our users are having on their machine, the Android platform that they have, your app will be displayed properly. So we'll choose drawables folder and we'll call this new file button gradient.xml. Don't forget the dot, and we're going to add a couple more files. So new file, button center gradient.xml. Don't forget the XML extension. Then we're going to add a button with just colored edges. So button edge color.xml. And we'll add a new button that has a rounded edge. So button round edge.xml. And a new unsquarish button, button oval or oval, yep, button oval, and one more, an oval button that is gradient. So button oval gradient. Nice. Okay, let's go back to our button gradient file. So we're going to add the XML format, XML version 1.0, encoding is UTF-8, and we'll add a shape. So XMLNS Android equals. So there's a few schema that we're going to choose from. So we'll choose schemasandroid.com apk res android. And then Android shape, rectangle. Okay, so as you can see here, there's a few options: line, oval, rectangle, ring. We'll add some gibberish over here, something. and then Android and color something 258191 maybe Android angle. So this is the angle of our gradient. Let's have some fun. So 45 instead of 90. Okay, so we have that out of the way. And to make things work faster, we'll just copy and paste this into our second file, which is the button center gradient. Paste the whole thing. Right, shape rectangle, and for the center gradient, we will add another line of code over here. So Android center color, something, yeah, something. So the color code will be displayed over here. So we have a bright turquoise, maybe a dark blue, and slightly brighter dark blue. And let's go to button edge color. So I'll change the start color to all Fs and color to white as well. Change this to 90. And since it's on the edge, yeah, let's use 90. Stroke to 4 dps, and the color of the stroke to 238 down, yeah, something. Let's move on to our next file, button rounded edge. Okay, so we have changed this to white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, white as well. And the next one, button oval. So instead of rectangle, we're going to change this to oval. And the start color, you can also type just 3 letters instead of 6 for your RGB. Now there's no angle for this. It's just going to be solid colored. And finally, the button oval gradient. So we'll change the shape to oval and start color to some color. So that is yellow, I think. And the second one, 5 and 8, that's brown. So your RGB color code is in hexadecimals. So there's 16 characters to choose from, 0 to 9, and then A until E, A, B, C, D, E. Yep. And we'll add one more. Android center color, 8053A. Okay, right. Let's replace this here and cut, change. So that would make more sense. Okay. And the angle is 90. The button oval has no angle. We'll do this 90 as well. 90, 45. Fine. Let's go back to activity main.xml. So we'll add a few extra buttons for each of our XML gradient and shape files. So we'll add a button to the vertical layout and another one. So we have one for the center gradient and then edge color and the gradient, oval, I think oval gradient, and round edge maybe. Okay, so we have one for center gradient, edge color, gradient, oval, oval gradient, and round edge. Okay, so let's set the 7th button. So go to the attributes panel over here and let's look for background. So here we'll define that our background would be drawable, so BTN center gradient. So I'll change the text to center gradient and we'll go to the second button. So we'll change the background to drawable edge color and change the text to edge color, and then we'll go to the third button, change the background to button gradient and change the text to gradient, and then oval. So background, drawable, button oval, and text as oval. Then oval gradient. Change text to oval gradient and okay, so let's see what happens on our device. So we have now all this funky looking buttons on our app. So we have the center gradient, edge color gradient, and then oval, I think, oval gradient and round edge. Instead of having our background image or color of the button static, we can actually change it whenever a user clicks the button. So we'll choose the topmost button, button 7, and we'll tell it to change its background color each time it receives a button click. So we'll go back to main activity and we'll create a new variable var button background to the type of integer equals to 1, which is a boolean, and another variable button change, and we will bind this with button 7. So r.id dot button 7 s button, and we're going to set a listener to button change. So set on click listener if button background equals to 2. So button change, we need to add a curly bracket here because we're going to have more than one line in the if. So button change dot set background resource. So button 7 is gradient, and we'll change it to center gradient, and we'll set a new value for btn background to 1, and then else if btn background equals to 1, let's reverse everything. So set background resource back to r.drawable dot button gradient and the btn background to 2. Right. Okay, so as you can see, each time I click on button 7, the background color will change. So that's it for now. If you like this video, don't forget to click the subscribe button, and see you guys later in my next tutorials. Thanks for watching.